And we're live, right?
Live as it gets.
We've been having some great conversation. We
learned about PFAS.
I still don't know what the freak is going on with PFAS. Anyway, I guess Topo Chico has freaking goat pee in it or something. You shouldn't drink it. So that's just know that. That's why I've chosen the Monster Energy. In our latest phase of Lance Egan upgrades, the current one is a very famous rapper. You all know him as Diddy, Shawn Combs.
Diddy Dirty Money.
It's not
Diddy Dirty Money.
Diddy Dirty Money.
Coffee.
Anyway,
Yeah.
here we have Shawn Combs. What do you do? Who are you?
Yep.
All that kind of fun stuff.
When I'm not rapping, I am the director of product design and development for the Orvis company for the fish, hunt, and dog categories.
That's
Wait
big.
a minute. It gets more. There's more.
Wait.
There's more.
Sorry.
Also, I proud to have the lead product developer for the rods and reels category.
Yes. Yeah. And so the Helios rods that we love so much have a lot of Mr. Shawn Combs' time built into those, right?
Some of mine, a lot of the rod shop. A lot of the team at the rod shop crushes.
Yeah.
It's a good way to start.
Yeah.
Whenever handing out the accolades for the Helios 3, the H2, the original Helios, there are some really talented folks at the rod shop that
Absolutely.
I get to work with.
And we went and visited last year. Was it last year or the year before?
It was last year.
Last year.
Yeah, year and a half or a little bit.
So, and it was crazy because like everyone thinks Orvis is this giant company and it's just this big corporate thing, but you have neighborhood ladies coming and picking the rods up to wrap them.
Yep.
It's like it's grassroots, man. It's
pretty small, in a small industry it feels big. In the grand scheme of things, it's a small family-owned business with real people coming and making an awesome product.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Very, I thought it was a small, a homey feel there. And everybody knows everybody. And
I didn't get escorted off the property when you guys handed me that faulty rod that I broke.
That was actually, that was a stunt double rod.
It was a stunt double? Yeah,
it was rigged.
No, if you haven't seen that, I may or may not have snapped an H3 in front of all the important Orvis people.
Whilst, let's tell the full story.
Yeah, let's tell.
While waiting,
because
you tuck your Birks off.
I didn't want to get my Birkenstocks
Nobody
wet.
wants to get their Birks wet.
I had to reach down over a 6-8 foot bank.
And there was a lot of people watching.
6 to 8 foot bank.
We had a lot of spectators.
Yeah,
and I fell.
Almost my retirement party. And you fell, and you were fishing the world renowned pond hogs at the flagship store.
Yeah,
it wasn't my idea though.
I think it was Rosenbauer's idea.
Yeah, and anyway, I broke the rod. I went and handed it to Shawn and Tom Rosenbauer.
Yeah,
and they thought it was just the funniest thing ever.
It was actually.
And we do have video on it.
We do. Yeah, it's out there.
I will quote you. You don't need a whole factory in that fancy testing equipment. Just give it to me.
Yeah. I'm good at breaking stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't break anything this morning, though.
Nope.
No.
So we went out. We fished on the Provo River.
We didn't break any records, that's for sure.
No.
But it was decent.
So let's get into this. So you've been with Orvis for how long now?
12-ish years.
12-ish years. And, we've talked a lot about rod design. Like, how does one even begin to enter that world?
Well, in my case, you hop a flight to Utah. It was like 2010. I was flying home from fishing out here, and the person sitting across the aisle from me was reading the Drake Mag. It was like the Chicago to Albany flight. I lived in upstate New York at the time. And close to the end of the flight, I was like, hey, you mind if I borrow that? It's a new mag, Like, yeah, sure. Friendly enough guy. We land, and within the probably 3 minutes it takes to get your stuff out of the overhead, and kind of walk off, he knew where I lived, what I did, where I worked, that I like to fish, and said, hey, let me get your email. Maybe we'll go fish sometime. I live in Vermont. So sure. A couple emails later, I realized that was Steve Hempkins, at the time the divisional merchandise manager for Fish and Hunt.
Awesome.
At Orvis, and it was maybe like 2 emails after that. He was like, "Hey, we have an opening as a rod designer, developer. You know, you can also work on reels if you want. What do you think?" And I remember like I was coming home from fishing, and I got this email. You know, you're not supposed to do it, but the stoplight town. I was like,
oh yeah,
checking my email. I pulled over and I called him, and I'm like, "Yeah, when can I come over?" You know, so that was somewhere back then, and that's how I got into it.
So, and what did you do before that? Like, because you can't just start saying, "Well, I guess I'm gonna learn math," and that shouldn't be that hard, right?
Sure.
You know?
Well,
that's what Curtis did.
I'm just going to design airplanes. What's the math for that?
What's the math for that? I mean, it's actually chapter 3 of advanced.
I just go outside and watch them pelicans and the seagulls.
That's it. Observation. That's the first step. No, I have a background in mechanical engineering. Got a master's a long time ago, I guess. And out of school, I really went into engineering because I wanted to design mountain bikes, snow skis, or fishing equipment. I grew up in Kentucky. My mom and dad had a hunting and fishing store in Louisville that I worked in as a kid, and fletched arrows, gave archery lessons, fished a lot, hunted a fair amount, and so I thought that would be great. Ends up, I went to a career fair when I finished my undergrad, and ExxonMobil said, "You would be great to come to Houston. We will pay you to finish grad school, and then you got a job." So that was like, okay, well,
petroleum industry.
That's not mountain bikes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Exxon, like the
yeah.
Exxon,
yeah, it's a big business.
It's a big business. So I went to the North America's office for project management there, and I was, this is like the life lessons of things. I was on a special assignment in Calgary, and I was working with this guy, and he was older than me. He's kind of mentor. We were fishing the Bow River. He fortunately liked to fly fish, and so we would go fish after work. It was a good time. And at some point, he was like, "You should leave."
Those are the best kind of
the best mentors ever.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of the Dwight Schrute. Michael taught me the best thing ever. What was it? If I'm going to do something, would an idiot do that? I do not do that thing. That's one of those sage, leave,
sage
get
advice.
out of here.
Yeah.
Sage advice. So, I went from that to, I did leave. I took his advice. About a year at Exxon, and I left Houston and went back to Kentucky. Still worked in oil and gas. Spent most of my young 20s traveling the world, working as a project engineer for a small company, a small family-owned business. And at some point, I the trout fishing in Kentucky was pretty awesome at the time, if you knew the right tailwaters to go to, and driving, stuff like that. But I wanted to be closer to skiing. Moved to the Northeast. Worked for a Department of Energy laboratory that was run by Lockheed Martin called Knowles Atomic Power Laboratory. And this one's big.
So people can just go and apply for that job anytime, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to have any.
Yeah. Careers.gov.
Yeah.
So I moved to upstate New York. It was a fun time. I like to tell people I worked with 2,500 people that were way smarter than me, and learned a lot. I kind of had a mindset of just be a sponge, and at Knowles Atomic Power Laboratory, because a lot of people are like, "Wow, what's that?" They were the lab that was responsible for nuclear propulsion for our Navy's submarines and aircraft carriers.
Yeah. So I used to hire engineers back in the day, and I always tell people, if you ever find a nuke engineer, don't interview, just write them an offer. You need to bring that guy in. A bunch of weirdos, but those are always the smart ones. I mean, we have engineer weird, and then we have nuke weird.
Well, I wasn't a nuke-y. I was an ME.
Okay.
But I played a nuke-y
Yeah,
on,
you
on
played with the
TV.
weirdos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Fair enough.
So how does that relate to fly poles?
Well, it doesn't at all.
Yeah,
At all.
exactly.
It doesn't at all. But it relates to problem solving and process. It relates to being very curious about how things work and asking questions, being a strong observer, and sort of, applying all that to fly fishing. I mean, it's something that I've been doing since I was 11 years old, and I was like, yeah, it's going to be fun.
So 22 years of fly fishing for you, huh?
At least, maybe. Oh, no, I'm going to my 23rd. It's a lucky, it's a lucky one, yeah.
So, and I'll tell you the story, like when we first started our shop, 2016, I think, Orvis rep comes through and he's like, hey, I have these new rods. And we're like, well, we don't know if we can bring in a high-end rod or anything. And so he's like, I'll just come bring them by and let's just cast. It's like, whatever. And we've cast everything. And I just remember picking up the H3 and we're just like, wait a minute. Because Curtis came back and he's like, dude, you need to go cast that. And I think it was like the 4-weight, 9-foot.
We cast a
D.
bunch of them, but
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
And so we immediately went in like, we're bringing them in. We bought some for ourselves to fish with. And I honestly have fished the H3 probably more than any other 5-weight in the past 5 years. And it's awesome. I just know that it'll do anything that I want. And so that's kind of one of your big accomplishments, I think, right? That rod's pretty amazing.
They're fun to fish.
Even though it has the white label that I absolutely hate. No, just kidding. Sorry, I yelled a little loud. If you're listening in your car, I will not replace your speakers. But anyway, the H3 is freaking amazing. That's
Thanks
a great
for that.
rod.
Yeah, they're fun to fish. They're, I think that those rods, if you think about fly rods, you can make rods that are really great fishing tools. You can make fly rods that are really great casting tools. Making that kind of combination of both, where they adapt to you, they adapt to scenarios and style fishing and techniques. I think that's when you get something that's a little more special. Than
Yeah, because I think you'll find, at least in my experience, some rods that do well in certain conditions and distances.
Or fly line configurations.
Or fly lines.
Yeah,
You have to really dial it in. But the H3s are so solid across the range, I think. Accurate.
Yep, accuracy is definitely a big part of that rod.
And everyone sees the marketing, but I don't think they realize what that really means, right? What makes a rod accurate?
So a rod that tracks well is one that it's the rod itself. Like you take the human out of it, you take the wind, you take the line, you take the fly, take all that out of it. You have a complex spring, right? So you have this thin-walled tubular structure that's super long. It tapers. It has varying tapers throughout each section. A lot of changes in wall thickness, and the way that rod stores energy and then returns it in the most efficient way, and does it in a straight path, like of its spring travel, if you will, its deflection curve. That is when you get a rod that's accurate. So literally, if you're good at taking your target, looking at it, using your thumb, and then from your thumb to back to your eye, and saying, I want it to go there. If the rod as an extension of your thumb, your arm, your eye, works for you, then you have an accurate rod.
Dude, so we were fishing pocket water today,
Yep.
and I literally did that. I'm like, okay, if there's going to be a fish, it's going to be right on the corner of this rock, but not too far out because there's a fast current. And so I literally did like I'm at a fly fishing show. I got to put it in the hula hoop, and I just went like this. It went right where I wanted it. Hopper stalled a little bit, set the hook, fish on.
Done. Yeah.
So I wouldn't have been able to do that with no other rod.
Well, so there's that. No other rod. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's. But the thing that accuracy also does, that good tracking and high recovery and damp rods, that are really efficient at turning over that energy or turning it into forward momentum in the fly line, is that whenever you've got your initial cast, but everything that happens after that initial cast, if you're dry fly fishing and you go for a reach cast, if you're bone fishing and you're like wanting to soften it up, and at the end just kind of do a little flip flutter, like a little, not a tuck cast like Euro style, but like an underhand cast.
Kind of just flicks up
Just
there.
flicks it out and then lays it in softly. The rod's ability to be ready for your second and third move in a complex cast is what
Huge
makes
deal.
a
Like,
difference.
Yeah, and I think that's one aspect of a rod, especially the Helios, that people don't like. Maybe you haven't gotten to that point in your casting where you're thinking about those second or third moves, but even simplifying it to the point where, like the first time I fished the Recon Euro rod,
Yep.
the same thing that you're talking about. So I was fishing with another rod. I knew there was a fish in this spot. I'd cast, but before I could get that rod to settle down and introduce, men to get my sighter off the water, whatever, I knew I was missing it. So I had switched to the Recon just for no other reason. I was just trying out a couple different rods.
Yep.
It settled right down. And on that first cast, I could tell such a huge difference. It's like, okay, I'm ready for my next thing. Cider was right there. Boom, fish on. It was literally like a foot of difference that made.
A foot and like 0.2 of a second.
Yeah,
You don't even really
super
realize it, right?
Oh yeah.
We've spent a lot of time kind of measuring different time, the time it takes to make different styles of casts. Would you guys have a guess of an average 5-weight average caster? How long does it take to put a 60-foot cast, 50-foot cast out? Once you finish the cast, so you got, if it's me and it's like 16 false casts later, we're ready. The song "Whip It."
Jeez, I don't know. Yeah.
Whip it good. Whip it good. But I mean, from you've unloaded the rod. You're done with your job right then and there. How long before the fly lands on the water?
0.9 seconds.
Nope, 3 to 3.5 seconds.
3 seconds.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to cast further.
Slow down.
Those 20-foot casts.
0.9. So yeah,
Slow down.
that's how
Look,
long.
They're throwing darts over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tax. No, but that's a lot of time whenever you think about what you can achieve in those 3 seconds. It's also a lot of time for your rod to do a lot of things.
Yes.
Right? And if your rod at the end of the cast is dissipating energy not only into the fly line, but it's like I'm out of control and I'm bouncing around left and right, up and down, all that good stuff. A lot of people think tracking is just how the rod tracks as you're going through your cast. Does it go in a straight line? But at the end of the cast, the rod tip is actually oscillating, not only up and down, but left and right. And the combination of the two create these like chaotic, directional tip paths, right? And that's it's a lot. That's a lot of aerial mends that you get for free.
Yeah.
And a rod that doesn't track well.
Speaking of that, so I always test like if this rod's gonna be like a good, quick recovery rod, I can do a right curve cast with it. That's the hardest one for me, where you cast, you have to throw the little mend the other way. And man, like it's totally achievable. I mean, I was fishing a 9-foot 4-weight today, and man, it was great.
Cool.
But the same thing with like all the other high end rods. Like a good fast recovery rod does that better than one that's just like wiggly. So aerial mends, good times.
Yeah.
Great fun. It's also fun in the parking lot. I say, one thing you won't believe is watch. I can do a curve cast around Briggs' whole truck. He just throw a big old curve cast. Dog and pony show.
So as you've designed rods, what would you say has been the most difficult or challenging thing approaching a design?
Well, there's a couple things. There's you got to back up from like why are you designing a new rod?
That's a
right?
good point. Yeah.
I think that back to that being really curious. There's no perfect 5-weight that you're just like, okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to make it lighter, right? Mm-hmm. You've got so many different variables. You have so many different outputs. You can make a rod that's lighter, stronger, faster, tracks better, more powerful, softer, tippet protection versus lifting power. You have all these kind of dependent variables that pull against each other in many ways, right? And so way back and saying, okay, what's changed? We're for the most part, using, dry flies look like dry flies. I mean, we have synthetic materials and all kinds of elaborate patterns and stuff, but they're pretty much the same deal that we were fishing with hundred some years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so on and so forth. And just the scenarios, and I like to take dry fly fishing as sort of like a baseline, right? You could have all kinds of different other techniques, but for a 4 or 5 weight rod, what are you trying to achieve? And then you back up from that one more and you go, what does the customer actually want? Like, did you ask them? Have you asked them?
Yes.
Or is it just like, what are you trying to achieve?
Oh my gosh.
I want to make a
Companies
sweeter
still
rod.
do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it helps.
Yeah, a
so
little bit.
we start with insight collection. We send surveys. We, have on the water interviews. We have, a lot of different ways we poll our field testing community, our endorsed partners, our ambassadors, our friends. It turns out you don't have to look around. A lot of fishy people all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And what do they want? And then from there, looking at, has something changed about fly lines, right? Has there been a shift in, longer belly dry fly lines or more aggressive forward, weight forward taper lines that are shooting heads basically attached to a runner with not much of a rear taper, And then it's setting down and saying fundamentally, we kind of take that and go, okay, so we're looking, and ultimately with H3 in the case of that rod, survey said we want accuracy, durability, quality. That was what customers really wanted, right? They wanted to improve their chances of being successful on the water. They wanted to do that day after day without breaking rods.
Yeah.
They didn't want to compromise that, And then from a quality standpoint, they wanted rods that they could be proud of, right? Their investment, and whether that's manifested in the attention to detail of how the guides are wound on, the quality of the cork, or it's into the actual. I know that I'm buying this 5 weight. And when I buy a 4, I'm going to have a similar experience, but in a 4 weight line.
Yeah, and that's tough. That's not easy to do.
Super tough. And then you go one step beyond that, and this was a big push for H3 was having what we call interchangeable parts. Before
this is huge.
This is I mean,
game changer.
It was such a cool thing because we knew in order to build H3s the way we wanted to, right? We want to make a more accurate rod. We want to make it stronger. We knew we couldn't kind of, just do the iterative process of like, okay, well, let's, mess around with this, turn this knob, turn the taper knob, the profile knob, the load knob, the material knob, all in the design studio center, right? And then see what happens and then kind of go, I like this one. Let's try to build a whole, 29 models just like this. We knew we needed to do better than that. We knew that in order to do that, we needed to build parts to blueprint. And at the time, we were just thinking, we want to build every tip section exactly the same.
Yeah.
We sat down and said, oh, well, to do that, we're going to need to invest heavily in new manufacturing equipment. And so, that was also one of the strong points of being a family-owned company that is run by anglers. Is they were just as passionate as we were about let's do this,
Yeah, that's cool.
Let's totally do this. And then so we got the right equipment, we have the right rod designers with Frank Horde, Don Swanson kind of leading the charge, running as director of manufacturing. We had the right team on the floor, and we started to really and this is really where I'm like, let's turn the spotlight on them. They really started to say, we're going to build each tip section the same, each tip mid the same, to blueprint spec. And so we were able to achieve that. Well, once you start doing that, and you're not doing it kind of the old way where you're, this tip is on the right mandrel, and, you got good compaction in the rolling process, and, the load's about there, you sanded it, you painted it. Now let's fit them together, and you might have to cut, 64th off of one to get a good ferrule fit. You might have to cut, you know, a 32nd or a 16th or an 8th. You know, it's just you're making unique artisan tools at that point. Once we got into the blueprint mindset, we were making these parts where you could actually just go to a batch of 30 tips, 30 tip mids, 30 butt mids, and just pull randomly, and they would all pop together.
That's
That's
awesome.
crazy.
Then, you just wait. You hold your questions.
No, I don't have a question. I have a comment
Oh,
about
go ahead.
how I snapped the only H3 that I broke because I sat on one.
Yeah.
And I had a section in 5 days. Because I got on there, I ordered it, and it went through, boom. And they're like, well, yeah, that happened because you're Cheech. I'm like, no, that's their process.
No, it's the process. And literally, yeah, that was the coolest thing, because I don't know that we were really thinking about like what that would mean from the downstream customer service experience. You know, as the rod shop from a design development standpoint, we were really like focused in on making the most accurate rod in the world, making them all the same. And then it was Don was like, well, you know, we can turn this whole customer experience upside down. Instead of having to send your rod that's broken back to us so we can custom fit a piece, we can just send you a part with a 100% guarantee that it's the same as the one you broke.
Yeah.
And so, you know, now the experience, instead of that, like send it back, high traffic, high volume, we would always go for 4 weeks or less of building you that custom replacement piece. And it's now down to 5 days or less. You know, you go in to your authorized dealer, place like Fly Fish Food, where you bought your rod. You say, you know, I got a broken tip section, no problem. Fill this out. Boom. You know, small fee. Here comes your rod. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we've talked to a number of customers that have had to go through replacement process, and it's all the same response. You know, super fast, no problems on the fit.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
You know, and as we talk about this, you know, there's one recurring theme that I always get when we talk about Orvis. And I'm so glad we were able to go on the tour. If you guys haven't watched, we did a tour of Orvis, the reel shop as well, and then also Fulling Mill. Really kind of close company to this whole thing. But a lot of people they have this image of Orvis of the late 90s or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, Orvis, you know, right now they are on the leading edge of so much in the fly fishing industry. Like a guy, he wanted to buy, I can't remember what rod it was, and he said, get that one of those H3s so I can just cast against it. And he bought the H3.
Right.
So like the tides are changing. I think it's very apparent in the Orvis, especially in the fly fishing gear, how, you know, there's a lot of, you know, boots on the ground, real people doing work, real product development being done, you know.
Yeah, your guys' product development on the fly side is very deliberate. I think like the reels, the new Mirages, they're so nice. Like just the tolerances, just everything is so tight.
Yep.
And all of the, you know, the packs and the bags and really everything that we've worked with since we've brought them in, and we haven't been doing it that long, but
Even the freaking luggage.
yeah, it's like they nailed it. Yeah.
I mean, Jesse was tapped to help out with the luggage. The luggage was actually developed in the apparel categories, and they were like, "Hey, Haller, we want an angler's perspective, you know, for adventure travel," and he was kind of brought over and.
Somebody's messing with the lights.
Yeah, I was like, "Is this the spooky part of the podcast?" Lights are going on and off.
Combs.
Yeah,
Enough
yeah.
of the freaking nerd talk.
Nerd talk over. Okay, let's get to our sponsors. But yeah, no, I mean, you know, Haller, who passionate angler, great product developer on the team, you know, and just looking and seeing how that passion and that attention to detail and that problem solving, you know, falls in line just in something as simple as, you know, a roller duffel. Right?
Yeah.
For
Like
sure.
I would say, so I worked in a fly shop in college in the 90s, and we had a few Orvis things, but I remember a lot of people came in just always kind of brushed Orvis off. Oh, it's this expensive Northeast sort of brand, whatever. Not that
East Coast
that it was
brand.
bad, but I think I don't want to call it a turnaround because I think Orvis has typically always made pretty good gear, but I think just dialing in on the fishing side, you guys I don't hear that anymore.
No.
Or if somebody does, it's because they haven't fished since the 90s or whatever.
I would just say, have you cast one of these things? Like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, no, I mean exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Have you cast one? Because if not, you should get behind one of those suckers as soon as you can. So yeah, what else do we need to talk about? What's something about maybe the Helios line that people don't know about? What's kind of what's something cool you can tell us that maybe we don't know? Put you on the spot there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people still 5 years later after we launched them have a hard time with the F and D series. Like what does F mean? What does D mean? And you have to think about it, right? New to angling.
Yeah.
You've sort of managed to steer your way into a fly shop where the staff or your trusted guide, and they're just it's old hat for them. Oh, check out the H3, check out this other rod. Let's go cast them, and while it is a lot easier to navigate that, are you finesse fishing? Or are you going for distance? Are you saltwater fishing? Are you fishing from a drift boat on a tailwater where you're going to be throwing longer distances and maybe like heavy wind? Or are you going to be, on foot or setting up on anchor on fish out of a drift boat on the tailwater? Sure. And really kind of honing in that, it's the difference between inches of what you're trying to feed, when you're making your cast. So I think that's one that is probably a head scratcher for people, and that's just simple as that. F's finesse.
But it's actually I really like that approach because it's like, we have both of some of them, so it's been good to compare them. Yep. But definitely notice the difference. So same essential rod, but F versus D, I definitely would find like today I was fishing an F. Perfect for that size little river. If I were on a boat or something needing a little bit more distance cut through wind, I'd want the D.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm not gonna laugh. Anyway, I like both the F and the D as well. The 5-weight F is probably my number one rod.
I just got the. Sorry.
It took me a bit too.
Oh, sorry.
He's on another plane of.
You just operate at a different level.
Well, the air up here is a little thinner.
It is.
We can cut that. Anyway.
All right. Anyway.
I could make
all right.
some Bronco
What time
shows.
is it?
Yeah. Where are those lights again? Click. Yeah.
But anyway, no, I like it. There was a guy that was in, and he had been fishing the Igniter. He's like, I wish that Orvis had something like this. I'm like, that's the D. That's what that rod does. Yeah. It throws just like that. And another time we were out fishing another brand's 8-weight, that's very good, that we liked it. And we wanted to fish dual 8-weight. So I just rigged up the H3 for that day and cast it. And I'm like, Curtis, cast this right now. So he throws it. He's like, holy crap. He's like, so the other rod we thought was awesome is maybe not as awesome. And that said, all the companies are coming out with such good rods nowadays. I mean, there's no need to like bash one company to take another.
But I would say, like, I think some people get it caught up in this. Well, I bought my rod down at the local bait shop or something, just whatever, foreign made. Not that foreign made's bad, but that hasn't gone through like a legit design process. It's blankly copied or something from somebody. I mean, I think there is something to say about the rods, and there are a number of companies in the fly fishing world that do a really good job. Like they've got their Shawn Combs, and they do well with their rods.
Whoa.
Sort of.
I got your back. Don't worry.
Thanks, bud.
Anyway,
but it is good to know. I mean, there is a difference, right? I mean, whether it's the design, the materials, the thought, like you were saying, you pay attention and you're noticing these details and you kind of dig into it. not every rod out there has that. I think it's
fair.
fair to say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are real companies out there that have put rods out, and you cast, you're like, what are you thinking? Anyway, but yeah, it's been fun to hang out. I mean, we hang out usually during show season, so anyway.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to come in, spend some time. Thanks for showing me local creek.
The local
The
creek.
local creek,
The
right
local
up the
creek.
canyon.
You
known
guys
as
are
Provo.
super fortunate to
Yeah, it's not a bad gig.
No.
yeah,
Literally
short commute.
fishing in 15 minutes.
You know, you get people that complain about, it can be crowded at times, but you have a blue ribbon fishery a few miles from your house. It's like, that's pretty freaking
It's pretty
cool.
sweet.
And we didn't see anybody else fishing.
Nope.
That's true. Well,
Anyway, all right, Shawn, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll
Awesome
probably
times.
have you on again. It's second part kind of a thing.
then we're going to ask him all
Drop a
hard
comment if you want him
questions.
back.
Yeah,
Drop a
any
comment.
questions?
Oh, yeah.
The second one would just be answer their questions.
There you go.
Answer their
Drop
questions.
the questions.
All right.
We'll come back with answers.
Maybe I'll let Lance sub in for me. 'Cause he's more entertaining. He won't make inappropriate jokes either. All right. Thanks, guys.